We got our boy Chris Rose on the line. Chris Rose, at Chris Rose on Twitter, John Boy Media, NFL Network, BattleBots, the Chris Rose Rotation Podcast. I wonder if Chris Rose gets any sleep, man. He's all over the place, man. He does a hell of a job wherever he works. We love Chris Rose on the roast. Chris, good morning, man. Thanks for joining us again, man. Joe Shasky, the Butcher Bonte Hill. How you doing this morning?
You just woke me up. So that's when I was sleeping.
Wait, where you living? You living in SoCal these days?
Yeah, still out in Los Angeles doing our thing.
Oh, especially it's very early in L.A. You guys don't sleep late. You guys don't sleep till late. So, obviously, the schedule got released yesterday. We're breaking it all down here. The schedule releases, the social media stuff. We're looking at the Niners schedule. And look, Chris, the truth is we never know how hard a schedule is until the teams play. Injuries happen. All the stuff happening. But I do like the 6 primetime games, and I love the fact that they get to Chiefs Week 7. And it feels like a game they got to have. I'll just say that. Without knowing anything, they got to beat the Chiefs once, just for their mentals, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you can circle it, but in reality, it's like one of the least important games on their schedule. It has nothing to do with tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with home field advantage. Has nothing to do with conference record. So, I mean, as far as the importance of the game, other than saying, hey, we beat them, it's not going to make what happened in Super Bowls 54 and 58 all of a sudden disappear. You're not like going to win that game and be like, oh, man, now we get that Lombardi. Like, that doesn't happen. You know, we can't backdate that stuff. So, sure. I mean, would it be nice to beat them? Yeah, but at the end of the day, whatever. I mean, it's not like you're trying harder in one game over another. That's just not what happens when you only have 17 games.
How would you react if Brock Purdy received the exact same contract as Jared Goff?
Ooh, good one. I think that's probably where it's going to end up. I'm guessing. Well, okay. Why?
It sounds like you're not. Well, you're not going crazy over it. Because I think I see 170 with Jared Goff. I'm like,
I think a lot of Niner fans said to themselves, "Oh, Detroit overpaid Jared Goff," and almost laughed at it. And we obviously think of our players higher than what other people. But I said, hey, I don't know if Detroit would trade Goff straight up for Brock Purdy if they were making the same amount of money. Plus, I don't think the Niners would trade Brock Purdy for Jared Goff if they were making the same amount of money. So I find it interesting, just the comparison between the two.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is that we all look at these astronomical quarterback prices, and you know who's going to be the first one to really draw the line in the sand. I mean, have people? You know, I suppose Washington did a few years ago with Kirk Cousins when they said, hey, we'll franchise you twice, and then whatever happens, happens. And Cousins has actually had a really solid career in Minnesota and now Atlanta, and made a ridiculous amount of guaranteed money in the process. And what has Washington been doing? Spinning its wheels, hoping that Jaden Daniels stops the quarterback carousel once and for all. There just aren't guys that move in their prime. So the option is, if you've got a guy that you think can really run your offense, and no, I mean, Brock Purdy's never going to be Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, any of those guys. But what he can be is a great quarterback in Kyle Shanahan's system. You know, the problem comes when you have to pay him and not pay other guys. We don't know then how good Brock Purdy becomes, right? We have seen what it means for Patrick Mahomes. It means he has to work a little bit harder, but he can still get it done. We're still waiting for some of these other guys, like Joe Burrow's contract really, I think, starts kicking in next year. Is that going to cost him T. Higgins? If so, what does that mean for him and his ability to get the Bengals to certain places? So Purdy, I don't see them doing it again, saying, okay, we'll go find another quarterback, because that is really, really challenging. I mean, don't you think they're going to extend him?
Yeah, I mean, we do.
I believe
we do, but I know Parag Marate was very creative with Jimmy Garoppolo, where they had these one-year opt-outs. So I wonder how they would structure a deal for Brock Purdy, because I'm with everything you're saying, Chris. I don't know how good Brock Purdy is without all these weapons. We saw the 3-game stretch in which they lost 3 in a row. There was no Debo, no Trent Williams, and they scored 17, 17, 17. It was by far Brock Purdy's worst stretch as an NFL quarterback. We saw the Super Bowl. You mentioned the limitations in terms of, like, is he Burrow or Mahomes or Allen? And when I see $170 million guaranteed, I sit back and say, boy, that's a lot of money for a guy who's had some injuries, for a guy who struggles at times to throw outside the pocket. Now, he had a very good year. MVP candidate, I cannot take that away from him. But that hesitation in your answer, Chris, we both felt that. Shask and I, that's kind of the pause we have on an extension for Brock Purdy a year from now, if that does happen.
Okay, so play this out for me. Let's say if Brock Purdy had been a first-round pick, let's say a late first-round pick instead of the last pick of the draft the year he came out, and he had played exactly the same way, would you be like, yeah, okay, we'll give him an extension? And, I mean, would your thought have been any different about extending Brock Purdy?
There would be less hesitation.
It's funny that you say that because Tua was a first-round pick, and I think Brock's better than Tua. But others would argue no, Tua's as good, if not better, than Brock. And I have hesitation on paying him that kind of money because once you pay the quarterback that much, to your point about team building, it just makes it very difficult to field an elite team around that guy.
It does. It makes it more challenging.
Yes.
There's no question. But do you think it's more challenging to build the rest of the team or to find the quarterback? I mean, let's be honest.
That's a great point.
The Niners, I'm not going to say they lucked into Brock Purdy, but there's no way they drafted him in the last pick of the draft, and they were like, this dude's going to be the best quarterback that we've got in camp. There's no way in the world they felt that way. And so it's the fear of having to do that again to find the most important position in sports. And I do think that philosophically it's easier to fill out your roster than to find that dude, because we've seen what it does to really good teams the minute they don't have the right guy driving the bus.
No doubt. Chris Rose here on the Morning Roast. We'll get you out of here with this one. How would you evaluate Farhan Zaidi's tenure with the Giants?
Well, this year's been really surprising because I actually liked what I would call the bargain shopping they did. I mean, I liked all the late signings that they made. I thought that Soler was going to provide something more than a 600 OPS. I thought Matt Chapman was going to be significantly better. I still want to wait on Blake Snell. I thought they rushed him. I thought he rushed himself to be ready, and he's always been a slow starter. So I want to wait on that one a little bit still. I mean, at the end of the day, the inability to get the dude in free agency, I think, is going to mark his legacy out there. But I'm surprised that this team hasn't been more competitive, particularly offensively. I mean, when late night Lamont is your guy, and that's been pretty much it. Conforto's been pretty good too when he's been around. But man, it's been disappointing. I expected them to contend for a wild card. And by the way, it's still so early. They'll be right there. But it hasn't been good.
Has not been good yet. Chris, thanks so much for waking up. We know you got to run real quickly. We'll do it again soon. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Anytime. Chris Rose, he had to leave.